I hated village.
Why did you hate the village? And I thought you were free there. Huh?
Yeah, free in the sense that there is nothing much going on. I like chaos. And I also like convenience. This idea of walking distance, I have access to everything. You know, we have this temptation to build the product or the solution, then go look for the problem to solve with this solution. And then the other idea is this idea of focusing on the customer. So customer, talking to them, gaining insights so that you're developing for them and not for self. But also this idea of patience. And you see that within our market, the Kenyan, but again, the African market, that when should you be in Nigeria? When should you be in South Africa? And the answer is tomorrow morning. Absolutely not. It's good to pace yourself. Go deep before you go bold in terms of, do you even have that product market first before you start to scale?
Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis and I'm quite excited to have you tonight on an interesting show that we have lined up. The guest I'm about to have a conversation with, he's quite established in the startup world, and he's actually started a company, exited, came back to Kenya, started another one, and it's going to be sharing that's quite an interesting story about how his journey has literally transpired. But before I get to introduce my guest, I'd like to remind you that you're here at the Capital Club, the place you need to be as an entrepreneur, because at the Capital Club, one of the core things that you actually push for is that your network is your net worth. There's quite a huge membership at the Capital Club of the who's who in the corporate world, in the entrepreneurship world, and it's so important for you to join this particular club. So you can actually check the website, that's the Capital Club website, and just get to be a part of this particular membership and just enjoy this particular experience. And also like to remind you that two of my books, that's the Food for Thought and Business Conquest, actually on Textbook Center and know your stores. You can actually get to have a part of my thoughts. Yeah, so one of the core things I was talking to the guest I'm about to introduce, that you always need to toot our horn, and that's one of the core elements you need to put out there. The guest I'm speaking about is Peter Kironji, who's the CEO and co-founder of Twiva. Peter, thanks so much for coming to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Looking quite dapper.
Oh, thank you.
Is
Try
it
to.
India, Kenya?
In Kenya, we are
original.
promoting made
You're not
in
pulling
Kenya.
that woolly thing.
No,
Hii
no,
nimeshonesha Nigeria,
No,
hii
no.
nimeweka wapi na wapi.
no. I'm here to promote local
It
businesses.
looks
So
quite
yeah.
dapper. Pleasure seeing you.
Yeah.
The first question I like starting all my interviews, what exactly are you most grateful for today?
A sense of purpose. Yes, that I have clarity around that. Yeah.
And how are you able to gain it? Because I think you've mentioned something that most people don't have, a sense of clarity, a sense of purpose. How are you able to gain that?
I think it's going through the chaos of it until you realize what you're good at and what keeps you going. So, and a startup really gives you clarity. So,
Clarity amidst the chaos.
Yeah, amidst the chaos. Like, do you really want to continue to push? Does it give you a sense of meaning and purpose? Does it excite you? Does it, impact people and folks around you? So yeah, that there's that. Yeah.
Interesting. When I was just doing a background check on you, I realized you had a very interesting childhood. One of the first things that I got to find out is that you grew up in a family of many children. Take me through it. I did my research quite well.
I realize you're right, and I must say,
Yes.
I just did another podcast somewhere, and it was my first time to go there. Like me, I always start my story past high school, because that's where I get into the workspace.
Yes.
So it's quite interesting that you
I
know
check
that.
everything.
But,
I check all your past interviews and do a background check quite well.
So yeah, in a family with 8 siblings, 5 brothers, and then I have 3 sisters after me that I care and love deeply. And that split again gives you a lot of diversity in terms of the conversations
you. Your number?
6.
Number 6.
A good number, yeah. So sitting in between the boys and the girls and trying to balance the dynamics in a family setup. Raised by a very tough and focused mom and an entrepreneur, the dad. So you'll see a mix of those in terms of who I have become or who I am being today.
Interesting. And you mentioned your dad was entrepreneurial. So what was your dad dealing in? Because I like getting to the childhood story so that I can get to understand the formative stages of a particular entrepreneur. What is your dad dealing in?
So yeah, good old days in terms of how money moved. So in sort of construction space, but sort of zooming into the furniture space. So anything with the finishes from construction space, that's the space that he was sort of like in. Yeah.
Interesting. And where were you raised? Were you raised in Nairobi or were you raised in the village?
We would move a lot, but my initial days were in the village, and I love that, you know, to get to be free, and that's where
the village is very different.
It is, yes, yeah. You're more free, and you're not distracted, so you start to sort of like form your inner self before you can start to be exposed to the other factors that start to shape you later. But yeah, we'd move a lot, but mostly in the village. Yeah.
Interesting. There's this particular saying that you always put out, like guys from the village actually come to the city and actually own the city.
Yeah.
And we from the city are in the city but never own the city.
Yeah.
How is it? When did you make that particular transition now from the village to Nairobi? Was it when you were doing your campus or?
I hated village.
You said it. Why did you hate the village? And I thought you were free there.
Yeah, free in the sense that there is nothing much going on. I like chaos, and I also like convenience. This idea of walking distance, I have access to everything, because that doesn't give you that.
Then what did you like from the village?
Like I could count everything. Like I have 2 friends, 2 neighbors, like two. So it's not quite exciting. And mostly when you go to high school, when you meet this diverse pool of students, you start to understand what is in Mombasa, in Nairobi. So that's why I started to divert my attention to where I was direct in terms of going to. So I started to come to Nairobi. That started to quite excite me in terms of the movement. There's a lot of chaos. And that kept me more excited than the silence in the villages. Yeah.
Interesting. And when did you make your inroads into Nairobi? Was it in high school? Was it in university?
High school, all the way from, you call that what, Form 1?
Yes,
so yeah.
Form 1.
Yeah, it was more exciting. You know, you're sort of looking at your peers, and this one sort of like has diversified point of view, you know, and yours is quite interesting, to say the least.
Huge to the village.
Yeah, so this idea of I want to know more and I want to experience that. So yeah, and then once I graduated from high school, there's this equity bank program, EALP. I think it's Equity Leadership Program or East Africa something, because they rebranded it. Where if you score clean A's and lead in your province, then they give you an opportunity to work in the bank. So then that was a sharp transition for me, because that then skewed in terms of where do you want to work.
Interesting. Yeah. And before you even get there, so one of the core things that I was just doing my research on is that you're an A student and you're a bright student. First of all, how was life like an A student? I'm very, very interested in knowing that. I was an average student myself. I was just a B, You're an A student. You're very, very sharp. How exactly was it?
I like to think of myself as an A student. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about that, but I would say easier in terms of access. But then there's this expectation that comes with it. Not now, back in the days, because like now, truly, like I don't think it's about your degrees and your A's. It's truly what you have to offer. And you see some folks who are living meaningful lives, and they were not A students, the C's and the B's. But yeah, back in the days in terms of access, for example, how do you gain access to a full scholarship? Truly, you need the A there, so that's the access. So it has opened doors for me, and that's the easy part. Yeah. So
for you, it was more about a necessity and need to get this, to get access, to get out of it?
No. And remember, this is in the early stages of my boyhood in that case. So you also don't know much in terms of what that A can give you access to. So then I'm very, very competitive. So it was about being the, the first student, like taking that number 1, and then that of course comes with the A. But it was about winning and being the first. And then later, as you get to your Form 3, Form 4, then you realize, okay, if I got an A, I can actually go work in a bank before I go to university. Then you start to now structure yourself in terms of, that means I take these courses and diversify my knowledge, my skills here. But initially it was just about like, you know, a boy in a go-kart race. Like I just want to win.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, in a point you've realized that if I score this, I can get this success. I can be this, and this is primarily what my academic proficiency can enable me get. What dreams did you hold? What did you want to be?
Well, I had the gift of an entrepreneur, and of course I was surrounded by so many siblings that could call it out in terms of how you are behaving.
And also dad was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I could see, I could touch money, I could touch again the chaos of being, you know, deployed to go fix that problem, and then, you know, the dad is explaining that then unlocked this type of value. But over and above that, there's also things around you that are sort of shaping you. Yeah, and you're not aware of that, by the way. Yeah.
Interesting. And you've mentioned that, what's it called, your siblings helped you unlock this particular gift for entrepreneurship that you had. Also, your dad enabled it by showing you how exactly you get the value. Let me just take you back, because you mentioned that dad was an entrepreneur in the construction industry per se. What are some of the lessons that early on you got from dad that primarily, when you look back in retrospect, you can say primarily it has enabled me be where I am today?
That's a good one, and I don't mean to be philosophical. So the first thing, and it was sharpened when I started to work for Equity, is this idea of working with money, or rather treating money as working paper. So it shouldn't distract you or destroy you. It's a means to execute. These are tools. Because you see, especially as young people, 1 million, 10M throw yous apart, like it breaks you. So that understanding of 10M, 100M, it's actually the tool for you to execute at that level. The other one, which again is this idea of cash, like to respect liquidity, cash, that you can have assets, but then you will actually get compromised. So I could see the nuances of when that asset is being taken away, and then there's that explanation of why that is happening, is because we couldn't honor the debts and whatnot. And then the other one is this idea of it's a marathon. Like they're not short sprints. Like you have to go the distance. So pacing yourself. So I could see my dad, you know, taking his time, even when it's really bad. He's not trying to fast track getting there. It's a journey. So that really stayed with me. So currently in Twiva, of course, there's a startup, an early stage startup. So you see a lot of chaos, but the decisions I'm making right now, they're informed by this idea of what's the long-term goal here. Because what you tend to see is that folks are being reactive as compared to responding to the chaos around you. So that gives you a structure that this is not yet a crisis, so don't react.
Interesting. We learned a lot from that. That's quite a lot. There's something interesting that I think where our conversation is heading to is that when you mentioned that you went through the Equity Foundation program, was it called, you ended up working out from the bank. How was the experience for you?
And I am so grateful for that opportunity. Truly, the man I have become, I can trace it back to that opportunity. And I have a lot of friends within that circle that have gone through the same program, so I can also draw insights in terms of what that does for young people. So the first thing is just an opportunity to know how to deal with people plus money, the most complex equation.
People and money.
Yeah. So this idea, you know, I was a cashier. Well, we used to call it relationship manager, and I see the relationship part, but it's basically a cashier dealing with cash. So it's a game of speed. It's a game of solving problems when you're talking with a mother who is taking kids to schools and they are trying to overdraw their account. So that really pushes you to also be empathetic in terms of working with them, including explaining to them that, because you know, there's this idea of there's nothing I can do, but there's also this idea of, okay, I'm empathetic and I can guide you and actually show you where we are, and sometimes without even solving your problem. So that's the first thing. The other one is, again, this refinement of treating money as working paper. The idea that they were paying us around 30K, but they had a structure to force you to save half of it.
How is
So
that's interesting.
yeah. So they would, you know, 50% of that would go straight to your saving account. So as someone who has just graduated from high school, to be forced, and I'm using forced because that's how I felt then. Now I appreciate it more. It's sort of like investment right now. But back in the days, that's really start to shape you, this idea of long term, how do I save and not? Because, then you're excited, you're a young man in my case, and you want to spend and to be flashy and to be seen to have.
Yeah.
And then the other one is that they are now paying you, the cumulative that accrues to you immediately is around 11,000. But in a day, I would touch 3 million or 10 million. So that disconnect of what goes to my pocket versus what I work really forces you to understand money. Because you see a lot of folks, like in a business world, folks being convinced with the GMV versus the net income. So I have a lot of clarity that dates back into the days, but also this idea of networking. And networking not just with my peers or within the financial sector, but these customers that are coming to you, they are quite diverse, their problems, their needs, their insights, their background, their experiences are quite diverse. So that conversation for 5 minutes while I serve you really shapes my perspective and the person I become in terms of broadening my awareness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So just after the program, what's it called? From just my research, you got an opportunity to go to Jomo Kenyatta, JQuat. I call it Juja Boys. I had you actually just at one point you just decided you enrolled in university, then you quit.
I didn't know you knew that. I skipped that part for the most. I have to give you credit to that. So
I'm always here to get the juicy parts.
Yeah. So two things.
Yeah.
And
why was that? Because you got an opportunity. You're from the village. You got yourself an A. You got yourself in the equity program. You got yourself to the university, which is actually presumed to be the prestigious epitome of being the A student.
Yeah.
And then you get to university, then you quit. Why?
So number one, I knew I would be an engineer. I knew it during my high school duration. But I didn't know the specifics of that. For example, if you look at our 844 system back in the days, you wouldn't know what university you would go to. So I didn't know, and to some extent, I was not too much concerned about which one. My parents and my school wanted me to be a doctor, but I hated biology. So that's the JQuat part. Yeah. But before I transitioned to university, I had gone through the equity leadership program. Yeah. So I was aware that there were other opportunities to go study abroad. I was surrounded by top students across all high schools in Kenya, the top tier. So I had that perspective that there are other opportunities better than what I currently have. But also, and I must say, there were nuances to our the program and the university. For example, I was in an engineering degree. I think it was known as telecommunication. So this degree is not accredited by the engineering body of Kenya. I don't remember the name of the. So you start to ask yourself sharp questions like, why would I invest my 5 years to pursue something that I wouldn't be recognized as an engineer, and I really wanted to be an engineer. So then you start looking at alternative. It just happened that Equity Bank had these boot camps that were, training you and giving you space to study for SATs to go study abroad. Yeah. And then I was doing both. And sometimes I don't tend to excel when I'm being distracted. I like to focus and just double down on one thing. So then I'm doing the SATs and I'm also in school. So then my grades start to be compromised and you start to get an A minus, and I want that A. So then I had to...
The A students.
Yeah.
A minus Nibaya.
Yeah. So I applied to a couple schools, got accepted to, I believe, 4 universities. One was University of Toronto, so there's the reasons why I chose the University of Toronto. So that then, of course, forced me to exit and now go study abroad.
Interesting. So here you are from the village, made it to Nairobi, made it to one of the top tier universities, but you saw an opportunity going abroad. First of all, how exactly was that particular transition from the Nairobi weather to Canada?
Yeah. Well, I would say my high school sort of like prepared me for it because it was in Nyandarua, very cold place, but it's not as cold as, but that's not to say that I just transitioned and it was okay for me. There was a transition phase, the chaos of winter, and by the way, the transition was straight to a winter. I think it was around October or November.
Oh, so you landed during winter?
Yeah.
I can tell you, but that was a shocker.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But of course, human beings are quite interesting. Like, you want something different. So for me, that was quite different, of course. And again, the human body adapts fairly quickly. So there's this tendency for folks to ask that question, like, how long did they take? I don't remember. I just remember I noticed it because it was different. But then I stopped noticing that it was winter, because again, it's the clothes, the boots you're wearing, and whatnot, and then you fit within. Right now, I feel cold in Nairobi, but again, when I transitioned to Nairobi, it was so hot I couldn't wear a suit. But right now, I'm actually cold. So it's quite interesting there. Yeah.
So you went, what's it called, pursued your undergrad in Canada, and then you also got into the startup world in Canada.
Yeah.
I think that was, what's it called? How was it? How did you, because you're in a foreign country, how did the idea of now setting up a business come to be?
Yeah. So number one, it was this idea of, or rather having an eye to spot opportunities. So the first thing I realized is that you can have multiple jobs while you're still studying. So
how many jobs did you hold?
3 at every given time.
How did you use to combine? So you had classes, at what point did you used to do now the jobs?
The thing is, I think we as young people, you have a lot of time that goes to wastage. And of course you have to choose. Sometimes, of course, it can eat into you other things like hobbies and whatnot. But then it's a sacrifice, and you're choosing what to focus on at that particular time. So for me, I would study. I'd go to classes there, attend my classes, and late in the night I would study. But then I have, that 2 hours period that I can go take a job. And again, these are part-time jobs, so I can just go up for a shift for 2 hours. So I was an IT assistant for the entire university. Sorry, not the entire university, the entire college where I was residing. I also had something that I don't want to discuss here, but sort of like a gig. This was back in the days when Airbnb was starting in that market. And then I was working for a Canadian bank, CIBC, again as a cashier, because I had this experience. So it was very easy for me to do that. So those were the 3 things that I was doing, and of course I kept changing. So, and then again, balancing that. But the thing is, and I appreciate that about that market or that marketplace, is that down the line you'll need more than the knowledge. You need experience. You need to interface with human beings and problems that are real problems, not simulations of case studies where they are powerful. It's different when you experience it. So going through the chaos of the IT space, the banking sector, and the bars within the city, those are the places where you start to meet people, and that will now go to how I got to participate in the first startup, because it was just a networking play. So yeah, for me it was just balancing and being excited by the fact that I'm not bored. And there's all these things that I'm trying to balance. And of course, as a young man, there's money that is also coming to my pocket. Yeah.
Interesting. So you've mentioned, so through the networking, that's when you managed to, you mentioned that set up your first startup. So what was the startup about? How did you set up? And how is it setting up a company in a country that's not, how did you go about it?
I was fast, number one, and I was a networker, still is, but then I had to, in the sense that you're in a new environment and you don't know so many people, and you need to position yourself for opportunities, and that will have to come with the network, the size of your network, and who is within that sphere. So I was very intentional, and I was not good at it because I'm quite introverted. It's not easy to call it out. So it would drain me, and I would have, let me go spend time alone. So so I am out there networking all these places, meet 2 gentlemen, professional doctors, and then, first coffee, second coffee, and one of these gentlemen says something very interesting then for me was, my fiancée earns a lot of money, more than me. So of course the obvious question, because I kind of know you now, I'm like, oh, she's another doctor. Says, no, she's this something that people are calling influence. I'm like, what's that? So I go looking, and again, the next time, okay, we have the same conversation. She had a pet, a dog, and she would have this partnership with airlines. I believe it was Delta, Toyota, and she would be flown all over across the globe to create content. So then this guy say, hey, you are an engineering kid, you like to code, how about you build a platform where we can onboard more and give them opportunity to diversify, to monetize what they are doing, which is content creation. Then I still don't know where the money, the business side, so I just move with speed, develop something that's not so good, then we deploy it. And then it picks up fairly quickly, and then now we start to take it seriously. So yeah, there's
so up in partnership with the guy who suggested that?
So the 2, so it's 3 co-founders now.
All right, so it was you, What was it called? The gentleman and the wife? Was that?
No, it's the two gentlemen.
Oh, the two gentlemen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get you. Interesting. All right. So we're going to take a short commercial break and then we'll be back just to find out how this particular story transpired as to how exactly that particular app developed very fast. How did it grow? How was you able to exit? And actually so much from this particular story. So I'll see you after the break. So welcome back to the show. Before we went on a break, we've just been taking through this particular interesting metamorphosis of the story as to how exactly the guy from the village made it to the town, was an A student, and finally went to Canada. And here we were at a point whereby you've set up your first particular startup out of just that conversation. So you've set up the platform. It's literally picked up. First of all, how did it pick up so fast? You mentioned it actually picked so fast. How did it end up picking up so fast?
So remember, context-wise, this is around what? I'm in my second year of university, so around 2014, 2015.
Yeah. So it's still the earlier formative stage.
Yeah. And
Instagram
even
was there.
yes, it was. So this was influencer marketing, the good old days when it was a new thing, not like now where it's sort of like diluted, and we can go there in terms of the nuances and challenges that we have within that ecosystem of that space. So it was new in the sense that there was a problem that was not solved. This idea of I'm a good content creator, but how do I monetize that and capture value out of what I create for brands? So I think it picked fast because there was that pain market fit that you're solving for something meaningful. In terms of structuring, how do you even pay? How do you measure the return on investment when that brand is interfacing with 5 influencers? So it picked because of that, but also there's also nuances of execution. For example, we started with the entertainment space. So you are working with people who have the network, you could call them followers, so it's very easy for them to refer you to other users in this case the businesses as well as the influencers. So I believe it picked because it was a new concept solving a problem that existed.
Interesting. And then for how long did you run the business to the point where we decided now I want to exit?
Yeah. Interesting in the sense that I actually thought we could do better if we didn't exit. But my co-founders, when it came to voting, then it was skewed towards let's exit for so many things that we don't have to go into. So it's 18 months down the line, which is fast.
Yeah, extremely fast.
Very fast.
What kind of revenues are you doing at that particular point?
Not much. Yeah, not much. The traction was good, but I think we were doing around, I believe, 20k Canadian dollars a monthly. So not much, but much in the context of the duration that I took you to get there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And then how was the exit? How did you go about the exit? Because I know every particular startup or every particular entrepreneur yearns for the exit. Everybody looks for the exit. How did you go about the exit? How did it transpire?
Yeah, so it's this brand that we worked for that is in the financial sector, and they target mass market. So they believe this was the tool for them to actually scale and to sell their financial products, mostly on the investment side. So we served them, they liked the return on investment, and they acquired. I like to even say, I don't believe we had a business then. I believe we had a product. And that, of course, even if you look at the size of the exit, it's not that lucrative, but for me it was. Remember, I'm still in campus. So yeah, I think they moved with speed to buy the product before it became a business, which could complicate. So we didn't even have a brand, like nobody knew that there's that thing. So it's mostly the product in terms of how do you capture, deliver value. Yeah.
Interesting. And then how did you go about the exits? What was it called? So here you are in campus, in a foreign land, you've started a business, you finally exited. First of all, when you got what was it called? Maybe, I don't know if you're open to go into the details as to how much you received from that particular exit, but what did you do with it first?
Yeah.
The guy from the village.
Yeah.
Well, that's the money used to pass from.
So remember what we were saying initially, which is I was fortunate enough to have gone through the hands of gifted people from, you know, the bank manager all the way up to places where we'd interface with Dr. James Mwangi when, you know, he would mentor us and talk to us, and he would really meet us. Even in the Canadian space, he would come there and talk to us in, like, you know, it's a room with just 10 people, so there's that conversation. So I was not the kid that was distracted by a lot of money. So truly, I don't even remember the first thing. I most likely went out, but I don't remember anything that I got for myself. And then I was surrounded by friends that actually sort of, again, slow you down, like, don't be excited and whatnot.
Like, don't buy that car, don't do this.
And that came in handy when, again, we are now starting Twiva, because then you have to bootstrap. Nobody believes in this idea, and now you are starting the same thing in a developing market. It's quite different, so you have to invest a lot of money for you to prove that this thing can work. So I honestly don't remember the excitement around it. I remember how it felt, and it was frustration and excitement in equal measure. Frustration in the sense that I believed the right thing and strategic thing was to not exit. We had more opportunity to grow this thing and scale it. But again, the excitement of that, hey, I did something fairly quickly and I can see the value that accrued to self.
Interesting. Was that particular experience what inspired you to set up Twiva? In the sense that you've mentioned that you experienced excitement and frustration in equal manner. So frustration in the sense that you could not have built it to a business. That's when you decided, let me now also set up Twiva.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that now I knew there's that space and I had seen what it can be. And as a MasterCard Foundation scholar, there was this concept of go back to your community, to Kenya, and create opportunity for young people. So that then will be like, what market do you want to play in? Because I could have decided to start something else within the same space. So there's that, like, I want to go back, I want to create something, and I have the skill set to do it. But also, after the exit, I concentrated with my studies. Once I was done, I went into the cybersecurity for 3 years. That then again shaped the leader that I have become, in the sense that for cybersecurity space, you're interfacing with C-suite. So then, you know, you start to interface with their decisions, the consequences of the decisions they make and whatnot. And that then again sharpens the gift that you have to want to actually go into the startup world and do it again.
Interesting. And so you mentioned, so part of the, process from the exit is what exactly you used to set up Twiva. Take me through the earlier days of Twiva, and primarily, why did you decide now to set up Twiva for back home? Why?
Yeah.
Because it seems everything was going on quite well for you in Canada. So you were there, you were working, you've exited, you're pretty much successful. Why did you decide to go through all this hassle again?
Yeah. I credit the MasterCard Foundation scholarship program with the transition. As a matter of fact, the program initially was structured such that once you completed your degree, you must go back. That changed because we lobbied for that, and we talked to MasterCard Foundation, told them, hey, we don't believe this is the right thing. I'm disconnected from my network. If I transition, having left or exited that space for 5 years, I really struggled to fit in within that marketplace or workplace. So they did a study looking at, for folks who transitioned back, if you stayed for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years, who created more meaningful impact. So they realized that folks who transitioned directly or immediately after graduating, they didn't, because you came here and took a job. So you could argue the case that you took that opportunity from someone else. But for folks who are coming back 5 years, 10 years after, they came to start businesses. So you created opportunities for more people. So they allowed us to stay there, gain experience, and then you can come back later. So like I said, I'd like to credit MasterCard Foundation scholarship program with that transition, this idea of you have to go back and give back. So there's always that, the conversations we are having, that you have to go back and create something meaningful for your community.
Interesting. And how was the initial years? Because primarily you've done a startup here, again you have to start a startup, now you're starting it back home. How what was it called? How were the initial, because primarily you're introducing an idea that was primarily successful in Canada, and now trying to introduce this business model here in Kenya. How exactly was it? The aspect of trying to use influencer marketing for brands?
Yeah. So the first thing is that you're an engineer, so you know how to build tech and move with speed. So it started there. Let's build a minimum viable product, not exciting, but at least works. So we do that fairly quickly. I'm still working in the Canadian environment, then transition here to just test. So I think it was 2019, December or November, came back to just talk to influencers. So we brought them to a hotel. We were doing a demo of how the platform works, and the excitement. Remember, then there's not a single platform that is doing that. The excitement and the goodwill of these guys saying, hey, we can actually help you push this thing because we know it's going to solve a problem. So we validated that there was a problem matters. We have content creators, but they don't monetize what they do. So we are giving them a formula to capture value out of what they are creating, again, around their content.
Because I think most content creators, even guys who are watching this, the formula is that try to build YouTube, make money through it. But you're offering another particular formula. What's that particular formula?
So it's this idea of baking value in the content, so that when you work for that brand in terms of raising awareness around their either brand, their product, or their services, they can easily see the return on investment. So then if I invest 100K, what's the formula for me to at least recover the 100K, but preferably have X multiples of my investment in you? So if I pay you 100K, I want to realize revenue of, say, 1 million. So guiding them in terms of, how do you package yourself to be somebody that is attractive to brands, in terms of maybe even focusing on a particular niche, that you are beauty influencer, that you sell financial products, and that's the content you create.
So what's the fusion? Just break it down. What's the fusion? So there's the content creator who you want to create revenue for. There's the brand whom you want them to have a return on investment in terms of marketing campaign. So how does it work? How does the content creator make money? How does the what's it called? How does the brand also attain a return on investment in terms of their campaigns? How does it work?
Yeah, so the initial stages, which we call Twiva 1.0, it was basically very simple. You're just connecting that brand with the influencers and giving them a formula to select what influencer to work with. And this is the idea of removing the human bias. If you wanted to promote this show, and I asked you, what influencers do you want to work with? You're likely to go with the influencers that you can name. That's the human bias. You'll go with the top tier, people that you know with name. But those are not necessarily the people that align with your brand values and even articulating the value that you have to offer. So this, we call it influencer discovery model, which is the science to the madness of what platform, because if it's a luxury or lifestyle product, maybe gravitate towards this particular platform, say Instagram. What gender? Because some products should be pushed by one gender. What age? What geographical location should you focus on? What category and what not? So there are nuances to that. So that's the formula that you're baking into the product to guide the brands to interface with the influencers.
So is it scientific or?
Purely so. Yeah.
Interesting. And how do you measure return on investment?
So you have a social listening tool, and this is the idea of that once you broadcast or distribute this content on these social media platforms, how do you track? And preferably not vanity metrics. Folks are looking at the number of followers, reach, engagement, but that's where actually we started. We started by selling those metrics that don't think it create much value for the brand, and that's then start to shape what we have become today. So again, we started as an influencer marketing platform connecting brands with influencers, but then we realized, and remember, this is beginning of 2020. This is COVID, when brands, and we intended to serve MSMEs. MSMEs value brand awareness, but they value sales conversion more. The fact that I paid 100K, but I didn't sell a single product is quite frustrating for this business. So we start to ask ourselves hard questions. If we truly want to serve micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, then we have to have a formula of how to drive a sales conversion, but more so track that. And that's the problem we have within influencer marketing today, that is not performance based. It's sort of like digitized billboards without being offensive, which is, no, you that's hire me, that's a reality. And I'm just going to post it on my Instagram, but don't ask me how much value I created for you. So what we did with Speed is to say, can we leverage the same infrastructure, the same formula, and actually bake the e-commerce layer into the product, and that is going to allow us to even now commit to the sales conversion. So today we like to say that we are an influencer-driven social commerce platform, and we help brands to effectively gain access to customers, and we do that by marketing and selling their goods and services. So the selling part is what you don't find within that ecosystem.
Don't like that.
Yeah. And it's this idea that you're working with influencers or partnering with influencers to sell or to resell. And it's good for both sides. For the business side is this idea that the value we create for you must be more than the value we capture. And we is the platform plus the influencers. Because you don't have that with the traditional influencer marketing. But also, how do you track? Because if you are to drive that traffic to, or rather the checkout process is happening on the client side, we are Kenyans, and I have noticed some nuances there matters that they won't disclose the true numbers.
Culture.
But if you build the infrastructure to actually track, then I know that you paid me 100K and I sold 1 million. So I know I created value for you.
The social e-commerce that you mentioned about, whereby so you do the campaign, you can even track in terms of the numbers that are actually received and the conversions through that particular platform.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so it's a new concept, and also, what's it called? One of the core things is that also social media is also new, or not new per se in terms of now it's advertising. It's accessible to anybody. Anybody can do the Facebook ads by themselves. You can put money, you can even track it and all that stuff. So how do you differentiate with such particular elements within the business that you are in? Because here you're doing influencer marketing, as you've mentioned, you have the nuances of selling, but now are you able now to compete also with such social platforms?
Yeah, so we like to look at Twiva as an infrastructure to power MSMEs within that ecosystem of digital platforms, and specifically social media platforms. So we are not competing with the Facebook, the WhatsApp, the Twitters. We're actually helping these businesses to be digitized and to be in that space. So by proxy, you could argue the case that we are democratizing access to customers or access to those platforms for the micro, for the small, for the medium enterprise, so that you level the playing field for these guys. Because the tier 1 brands, corporates are not struggling with marketing to gain access to the customer. But these guys don't even know how do I sell on social media. So you start by giving, and I'll walk you through how Twiva works. Because if you're talking about in a Kenyan context, but you can blow that up to the African or the continent context, matters that what's the problem for micro and small business? Why are they struggling? And for us, it's 3 things. Number 1 is that they are limited in terms of digital marketing skill set required for you to effectively gain access to the customer. Like if you look at content, they'll drop artwork on the front, take a picture. It doesn't excite me, but if I saw it in a context of how it looked like in my house, then most likely I'm likely to buy. So they don't have the skill set. The other one is they also lack resources to fix that by hiring, because you can hire a marketer, but they don't have the resources to do that. And the other thing is, and this is mostly, it's cut across e-commerce, that we have a trust gap. And that's why you have things like payment on delivery. I don't trust that you're going to deliver, so I'll wait until you deliver and then I pay. And when they are more micro or small businesses, the trust is diluted. As a matter of fact, for e-commerce space, the sales conversion rate is 2%. So for the micro and small ones, it's less than 0.00 something. So it's quite frustrating for these businesses. Okay, so how do you solve that problem for these businesses? Number 1, what's the alternative? Is the traditional e-commerce platforms. They are quite complex and not accessible to the small ones. Because when you go to buy an electronic device, you gravitate towards the brands that you know, right? And also there's this idea of you go to this platform knowing the product that you're looking for. And what we are doing as Twiva is to flip that so that products are finding people, the buyers, and not buyers finding products. So that then we can look at who you are and your needs and then personalize the products that we are showcasing to you. So then tech becomes quite important. So today how the platform works is that businesses would sign up on our platform, list their goods and services. Those goods are exposed to the database of influencers and resellers that we have, they can either pull, and pull is to select the products that you want to resell, but we can also push. Push is this idea of matching that product to the right reseller, and we are using AI there to look at the data sets and match them. The moment they select the products or they are matched with the right products, then there's the distribution formula. So that's fully automating that I just click one button and that product now will be distributed on all platforms where I have a presence. That's Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp.
Across all the particular influencers on the platform?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So then people can discover, and then we sort of like streamline the process of checking out so that then you can transact. Because today, if you wanted to buy a product on Instagram without Twiva, you'd see content. The first thing you are asking yourself is, how do I call them? There's no phone number online. Do they have size 5? Do they have this color? Would they deliver? How do they deliver? How do I pay them? Yeah, that streamlines that process so that you can basically go throughout the checkout process without calling somebody. So it's very much well structured. But also now it's very easy for you to aggregate more value like logistics and fulfillment.
Oh, you see the whole process?
Without the details, it's baked into the product. So all the business has to do is to list their products and outsource everything else to us. So you, the micro business, yeah.
Interesting. Another question I'd like also to ask is on the influencer side. So I've realized the value that you're actually creating for the business, for the influencer. So you mentioned you work with a lot of influencers, and I think influencers are actually ranked. There's the micro, I think macro, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
How does the influencer make money? Is it on sales, or how do they go about making money?
So, and before I get to that, this idea of how do they make money, at a higher level, the value we create for them is there's this gap within that space of the balance between the demand and the supply side. So assume if you have a lot of businesses and not so many influencers, the businesses are not excited. But if you flip that, if you have a lot of influencers and a few businesses to drive value for them, the influencers are not excited. So you have to balance. It's very hard to balance if you're working with the traditional influencer marketing, this idea of brands hiring influencers to market them, because then they gravitate towards the top tier. So value doesn't, it's not even redistributed. So the idea of reselling is that the moment you sign up as an influencer, you can start to earn immediately because you are reselling products and businesses, so it's easy for you to be discovered. So assume a brand that's selling beauty products, say a lipstick. Today, if you signed up as an influencer and started to sell products within that category, the businesses would say, who has been selling beauty products and I want to market through them. So then you have also again leveled the playing field that now a brand is interested to hire a nano or a micro influencer because they are driving more value than the mega or the top tier influencer. So that's how it works. In terms of how they earn, there are two ways that they earn. We continue to do influencer marketing as you know it, this idea of I'll pay you to market me, but also they capture value from reselling products and making, you can call them commissions, but they are more lucrative than commissions. So you'd see actually before you start to resell, you'd see how much you'd make. So if you're selling a mobile device, it would show you that you would earn 3,000 per device that you sell. So if you sell, that's how much you're going to retain.
Interesting. My goodness, I'm being told time. It's literally not on our side per se. I'd like to just extend this particular conversation. But the last question I'd like to ask you is this. Your journey is very interesting. Like, it's a very, very interesting Kenyan journey. Someone who came from the village, found himself abroad, set up the business. What are some of the core lessons that you've learned from your entrepreneurship journey that you can say actually are highlights for you that you'd like to share out?
So for within the entrepreneurship space, I think is this idea of starting with the problem. Like, what are you truly trying to solve for? Because we have this temptation to build the product or the solution, then go look for the problem to solve with this solution. And then the other idea is this idea of focusing on the customer. So customer, talking to them, gaining insights so that you are developing for them and not for self. And mostly for folks like engineers, it's very easy for you to, to develop things that you like, but that doesn't solve a problem that your customers have. but also this idea of patience. And you see that within our market, the Kenyan, but again, the African market, that when should you be in Nigeria? When should you be in South Africa? And the answer is tomorrow morning. Absolutely not. It's good to pace yourself. Go deep before you go bold in terms of, do you even have that product market first before you start to scale? Because you're saying folks who are trying to move with speed, but you don't have your fundamentals like unit economics before you start to scale. So sort of like pacing yourself, and that's why today we're only in Kenya by choice. We are not in any other market, neither are we going anywhere this year. So that if we can show the value we can create within Kenya, and you look at businesses like M-Pesa, the value that they create within just Kenya, and the value they capture is huge. So there's no need for you to be in Nigeria, Morocco, markets that are very different from ours.
But you find that the problem with that is that once you get investment, you're forced to do this.
So that's the misalignment between the thesis for the investors and their theme with you. And that's why you need to be careful in terms of where you are raising money from, so that is it growth at all costs or is it profitable growth? I like profitable growth, which is this idea that if we spread ourselves thin and we're in 17 markets, that dilutes the value that we can actually create for all the people that we are trying to serve. But most importantly, this question, you're auditing yourself and you keep asking yourself, is the value I create more than the value I capture? This idea of impact. For us as Twiva, we exist to create meaningful and dignified jobs for young people. So you have to keep looking at the influences. Are we truly creating meaningful jobs for them? So that influences everything and all the decisions you make. Who do you partner with? So for example, some of the partnerships we have today is this idea of equipping the influencers with the tools they need. Is it a microphone, a camera, a smartphone, so that you can create content and then monetize it? So if you start with the impact that you're trying to have on the business side in terms of helping them gain access to market, or the young people side, the influencers, trying to give them meaningful and sustainable jobs, it really shapes the business in terms of every decision that you make, so that you are guided. Where are you drawing insights before you make that decision that could be strategic for the business that you're in?
Interesting. Quite interesting insights, my goodness. Quite a lot. I think we need to have a part two of this particular conversation, because I think there's so much that you need to learn, especially in this particular around the area of influencer marketing, because that's where everybody is right now. Everybody's a content creator. Once you have a phone, you're a content creator, but the idea is how do you monetize it, and primarily Twiva offers that particular opportunity. Peter, thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for sharing the insights. I'm actually quite inspired by your story, and I hope also you as the audience will be inspired by that particular story. As always, oh my goodness, it's always sad coming to the end of the show, but I hope you've learned a thing or two from this particular conversation. We're coming to you from the Capital Club, the place you need to be as an entrepreneur, because one of the interesting things about the Capital Club is the access to the many amenities. We're shooting this particular episode from one of the rooms, which is one of the meeting rooms. So as an entrepreneur, once you're a member of the Capital Club, you can have access to the meeting rooms. There's the gym, there's the spa, there's the entertainment area. There's actually so much. You can literally run your whole day, your whole week from this particular premise at the Capital Club. My name is Ian Dennis. This has been the Late Night Business. Until next time, I'll see you right here on KTN Home.